The 2015 Bombay Hook Quarter is part of the America the Beautiful Quarters program, a series introduced by the United States Mint in 2010 to honor national parks and historic sites across all U.S. states and territories. Bombay Hook National Wildlife Refuge, located in Delaware, was chosen as the theme for the fourth coin released in 2015 and the 29th overall in the series. This coin captures both natural beauty and American conservation history, making it a favorite among collectors and nature enthusiasts alike. The design on the reverse of the Bombay Hook Quarter was created by artist Joel Iskowitz and engraved by Phoebe Hemphill. It features a beautifully detailed scene from the wildlife refuge, showcasing a great blue heron in the foreground and a great egret standing in shallow water behind it. These birds are two of the many species that inhabit the 16,000-acre tidal salt marsh of Bombay Hook. The scene captures the essence of Delaware's coastal wetland habitat, and the mirror-like water surface reflects the birds and trees, adding to the coin's visual appeal. Surrounding the image are the inscriptions Bombay Hook, Delaware, 2015, and E Pluribus Unum. The obverse features the familiar portrait of George Washington, originally designed by John Flanagan in 1932 and used throughout the quarter series. Bombay Hook itself is one of the oldest national wildlife refuges in the United States. Established in 1937, it plays a crucial role in preserving habitats for migratory birds along the Atlantic Flyway. The refuge provides safe resting, feeding, and breeding grounds for hundreds of species. The U.S. Mint's choice to feature this site on a quarter reflects the growing public appreciation for America's protected natural spaces and the efforts to preserve them for future generations. The 2015 Bombay Hook Quarters were produced at 3 U.S. Mint facilities: Philadelphia, marked with a P, Denver, marked with a D, and San Francisco, marked with an S. The Philadelphia and Denver Mint struck the coins for general circulation, while the San Francisco Mint struck them as part of special collector sets. Mintage numbers for circulation coins were approximately 223.2 million from Philadelphia and 223.8 million from Denver, making this a relatively high mintage issue compared to some other quarters in the series. The San Francisco Mint, however, produced a much smaller number, roughly 1.1 million coins intended for numismatic sets only, which makes the S-Mint mark versions more desirable among collectors. Although most Bombay Hook quarters in circulation are worth face value, there are several factors that can increase their value. Coins in uncirculated or mint state, MS condition, especially those graded MS 65 or higher by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, can sell for a premium. As of recent market trends, an MS 65 Bombay Hook quarter typically sells for around $3 to $5, while MS 67 examples can fetch $20 or more depending on demand and eye appeal. An MS 68 example from the Philadelphia or Denver Mint could bring in significantly more, often between $75 and $150, given their relative scarcity at that high grade. Next up, the 2007 Idaho State Quarter is part of the U.S. Mint's 50 State Quarters program, which began in 1999 and ran until 2008. As the 43rd coin released in this historic series, the Idaho Quarter was officially issued on June 4, 2007, representing the state that joined the Union in 1890. Like the other coins in the series, the Idaho Quarter was struck for a limited time, giving it special appeal for collectors who value both its artistic design and state heritage. The reverse of the Idaho Quarter features a beautifully detailed image of a peregrine falcon in flight, with its wings stretched wide and its gaze turned downward as if scanning the land below. This design choice honors the fastest animal on Earth, the peregrine falcon, a bird that once faced the threat of extinction but has made an incredible comeback, especially in Idaho, where conservation efforts played a key role in its recovery. The coin's design was created by U.S. Mint artist Don Everhart and includes the state motto Esto Perpetua, which is Latin for Let It Be Perpetual, reflecting Idaho's enduring natural beauty and the resilience of its wildlife. In addition to the falcon, the outline of the state of Idaho appears in the background, anchoring the design with a geographic identity. The inscriptions on the reverse include Idaho, 1890, the year the state joined the Union, 2007, year of issue, and E Pluribus Unum, which appears on all state quarters. The obverse, as with every quarter in the 50-state series, features the classic portrait of George Washington, originally sculpted by John Flanagan and slightly modified for the series to accommodate additional design elements. The Idaho quarter was minted at all 3 U.S. Mint facilities, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Circulation strikes were produced in high numbers, with the Philadelphia Mint, marked with a P, striking approximately 294.8 million coins, and the Denver Mint, marked with a D, producing about 286.8 million. These high mintage figures mean that most Idaho quarters found in circulation today are only worth face value unless they are in exceptional condition. The San Francisco Mint, however, produced special proof versions of the Idaho quarter, both in standard copper-nickel clad and in 90% silver. These proof coins were never intended for circulation and were sold in collector sets. The clad proof version typically carries a value of about $3 to $5 in pristine condition, while the silver proof version, due to its precious metal content, is usually valued between $8 and $15 depending on silver market prices and condition. As for uncirculated or mint state examples of the Idaho quarter, values can vary based on grade. Coins graded MS-65 by professional services like PCGS or NGC may be worth between $3 and $7, while those graded MS-67 or higher are more desirable and can fetch between $15 and $50, depending on the buyer and overall demand. Extremely high grade. Examples, such as MS-68, are significantly rarer and have been known to sell for over $100, especially if they are certified and have strong eye appeal with full luster and no visible contact marks. There are no major confirmed mint errors or varieties widely associated with the Idaho state quarter, unlike some of the earlier state quarters like the Wisconsin Extra Leaf or the Delaware Spitting Horse. However, collectors still examine large quantities of these coins for anomalies such as off-center strikes, die cracks, or doubled dies. Any Idaho quarter with a noticeable and verifiable error could command a premium, depending on its uniqueness and condition. The 2010 Yosemite National Park quarter is the third release in the U.S. Mint's America the Beautiful Quarters program. This series, which began in 2010, celebrates national parks and sites in each of the 50 states, Washington, D.C., and the U.S. territories. The Yosemite Quarter honors one of the most iconic and breathtaking landscapes in the United States, Yosemite National Park in California. Yosemite was established as a national park on October 1, 1890, and it's famed for its towering granite cliffs, ancient sequoia trees, and stunning waterfalls. The park draws millions of visitors each year and has been central to the American conservation movement, thanks in part to naturalist John Muir, who campaigned for its preservation. The reverse of the Yosemite Quarter captures one of the most recognizable natural landmarks in the park. El Capitan, a massive granite monolith that rises about 3,000 feet above the valley floor. The design, created by U.S. Mint Artistic Infusion Program artist Joseph Mena, features a detailed view of El Capitan framed by pine trees and the Merced River in the foreground. It beautifully represents Yosemite's rugged beauty and serene landscape. Surrounding the design are the inscriptions, Yosemite, California, 2010, and the national motto, E Pluribus Unum. The obverse of the coin, consistent throughout the America the Beautiful series, features a restored version of John Flanagan's 1932 portrait of George Washington. It includes the inscriptions United States of America, Liberty, In God We Trust, and Quarter Dollar. This design was modified to appear more like the original than the state quarters versions and is bolder in detail. The Yosemite quarter was minted in Philadelphia, P, Denver, D, and San Francisco, S. Here's the mintage breakdown. Philadelphia. Mint, P, 34.8 million coins. Denver Mint, D, 34.8 million coins. San Francisco Mint, S. These are special proof coins, including both clad proof and 90% silver proof versions made for collectors. Clad proof coins had a mintage of about 1.4 million, while the silver proof coins had a slightly lower mintage. In terms of value, Yosemite quarters from circulation, either P or D mint marks, typically carry face value of 25 cents unless in mint state condition. However, coins that are uncirculated and graded MS65 or better by third-party services like PCGS or NGC can command $2 to $10, with higher grades such as MS67 or MS68 bringing in $30 to $100 plus, especially if they exhibit strong luster and no marks. The clad-proof Yosemite quarters from the San Francisco Mint, which were not intended for circulation, are worth around $2 to $5 depending on condition. The 90% silver-proof versions, on the other hand, typically fetch $12 to $20 depending on silver market prices and coin grade. These are popular among collectors building America the beautiful quarter sets in silver. As for error varieties, there are no major publicized or highly valuable errors associated with the Yosemite quarter, though some minor errors like die cracks, die chips, or off-center strikes occasionally appear and may fetch modest premiums among error collectors. Always check with a coin grading service or an expert before attributing value to a suspected error. Next up, the 2003 Alabama State Quarter holds a special place in U.S. coinage history, not only because it represents the 22nd state to join the Union, but also because it was the first U.S. coin to feature an actual historical woman. Issued as part of the U.S. Mint's 50 State Quarters program, the Alabama Quarter was released into circulation on March 17, 2003, becoming the 22nd coin released in the series, which ran from 1999 to 2008. This coin honors Helen Keller, one of Alabama's most celebrated figures, whose life and accomplishments continue to inspire people around the world. Born in Tuscumbia, Alabama in 1880, Keller became deaf and blind at a young age due to an illness. Through the help of her devoted teacher Anne Sullivan, she learned to read, write, and speak, eventually becoming an internationally known author, political activist, and advocate for the disabled. Her appearance on the Alabama Quarter marked a groundbreaking moment in numismatic history, as she became the first person with a disability and the first woman to be featured individually on a circulating U.S. coin. The reverse design of the Alabama Quarter was created by artist Norman E. Nemeth and centers around a portrait of Helen Keller seated and reading a book in Braille, symbolizing her education and achievements. Above the image is her name inscribed in Braille, another numismatic first. Flanking her are longleaf pine branches and magnolia blossoms, representing the state tree and flower of Alabama, respectively. Below her image is the phrase, "Spirit of Courage," capturing the resilience and determination that defined Keller's life and legacy. Surrounding the design are the inscriptions, Alabama, 1819, the year the state joined the Union, 2003, year of coin issue, and E pluribus unum. The obverse side of the coin features the traditional portrait of George Washington, originally designed by John Flanagan for the 1932 quarter and modified slightly for the State Quarters series to allow space for inscriptions. The inscriptions include United States of America, Liberty, In God We Trust, and Quarter Dollar. The Alabama Quarter was struck at the Philadelphia and Denver mints for circulation, as well as the San Francisco Mint for A proof coins. The Philadelphia Mint, P, produced approximately 225 million Alabama quarters, while the Denver Mint, D, struck around 232 million, making them widely available in circulation. The San Francisco Mint S produced both clad-proof and 90% silver-proof versions for collectors with significantly lower mintages. The clad-proof coins, made of copper nickel, feature a mirrored background and frosted design, while the silver-proof coins have added intrinsic value due to their precious metal content. When it comes to value, circulated Alabama quarters from the Philadelphia and Denver mints are generally worth face value, or 0.25, unless they are in exceptionally good condition. Uncirculated examples, especially those graded MS-65 or higher by grading services like PCGS or NGC, are more valuable. A Mint State 65 Alabama quarter typically sells for $2 to $5, depending on the market. Higher grade specimens, such as MS-67 or MS-68, can fetch significantly higher prices, sometimes ranging from $15 to over $100. Especially for certified coins with excellent luster, no visible contact marks, and sharp detail. The clad-proof Alabama quarters produced in San Francisco are valued between $2 and $5, depending on condition, while the 90% silver-proof versions often sell for $8 to $15 or more, based on current silver prices and collector interest. Coins still in their original proof sets or with professional certification tend to command higher premiums. Although there are no major or widely known errors associated with the Alabama quarter, collectors occasionally find minor anomalies such as die cracks, die chips, or off-center strikes. These are typically worth modest premiums if the errors are visible and dramatic enough to be of interest to error collectors. Next up, the 2004 Wisconsin State Quarter is one of the most talked about coins in the U.S. Mint's 50 State Quarters program, not only because it highlights the state's agricultural legacy, but also due to the discovery of rare and valuable error varieties that have captured the attention of collectors across the country. Released as the 30th coin in the series, the Wisconsin Quarter officially entered circulation on October 25, 2004, representing the 30th state to join the Union, which it did on May 29, 1848. Wisconsin's design pays tribute to its rich farming, tradition, and dairy industry, which earned the state the nickname America's Dairyland. The reverse of the coin, designed by Alfred Maletsky and sculpted by Norman E. Nemeth, prominently features three symbolic elements. On the left side of the design is the head of a Holstein cow, representing Wisconsin's dominance in dairy production. At the center sits a round of cheese, specifically cheddar, emphasizing the state's world-famous cheese-making heritage. On the right is a partially husked ear of corn, symbolizing the state's role in crop farming and agriculture. Above these elements is the inscription "Forward," Wisconsin's state motto, reflecting progress and ambition. The surrounding text includes Wisconsin, 1848, 2004, and E Pluribus Unum. The design effectively captures the heart of Wisconsin's economy and culture, its agricultural strength, and the people behind it. The obverse of the coin features the traditional portrait of George Washington, originally created by John Flanagan, for the 1932 quarter and adapted for the state quarters. It includes the inscriptions United States of America, Liberty, In God We Trust, and Quarter Dollar. The Wisconsin quarter was produced at both the Philadelphia P and Denver D mints, as well as at the San Francisco S mint for proof coinage. The Philadelphia Mint struck approximately 226.8 million coins, while the Denver Mint produced about 226.4 million. The San Francisco Mint issued clad-proof and 90% silver-proof versions in significantly lower quantities for collectors. Under normal conditions, circulated Wisconsin quarters from Philadelphia or Denver are worth face value, 25 cents. However, the 2004 Wisconsin quarter became the focus of intense interest when two distinct error varieties were discovered in circulation in early 2005. These varieties, both from the Denver Mint, are now famously known as the extra leaf high and extra leaf low errors. In these error varieties, an extra leaf appears on the left side of the ear of corn in the reverse design. On the extra leaf high variety, the extra leaf points upward toward the corn husk. On the extra leaf low, the additional leaf droops lower toward the wheel of cheese. These extra leaf varieties were the result of die gouges, likely accidental damage or tooling on the die used at the Denver Mint, and they are not found on Philadelphia minted coins or on proof coins. Because these varieties were unexpected and relatively scarce, they quickly gained attention and value among collectors. At the height of their popularity, examples of the extra leaf low and extra leaf high quarters sold for hundreds, even thousands of dollars depending on condition and certification. Although prices have stabilized over time, these errors still command substantial premiums on the numismatic market. As of now, a circulated extra leaf low or extra leaf high variety typically sells for $100 to $250, depending on condition. Uncirculated and professionally graded examples, particularly in Mint State 65, MS 65, or higher, can command prices from $300 to over $1,000, especially when slabbed by top grading services like PCGS or NGC. The most pristine examples, such as those graded MS 67, have sold for $2,000 or more at auction. Next up, the 2006 South Dakota State Quarter is the 40th coin released in the U.S. Mint's iconic 50 State Quarters program, which ran from 1999 to 2008. Officially entering circulation on November 6, 2006, the South Dakota Quarter honors the state's cultural heritage, natural beauty, and historical significance, combining both majestic landscapes and patriotic landmarks into a single, elegant design. The reverse of the South Dakota Quarter showcases a powerful composition centered on Mount Rushmore, the world-famous granite sculpture located in the Black Hills. Carved by Gutzon Borglum and completed in 1941, the monument features the faces of 4 U.S. presidents, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln, representing the birth, growth, development, and preservation of the United States. The monument is both a symbol of American ideals and a major tourist destination, and its presence on the coin ties directly to South Dakota's identity. But the coin's design doesn't stop there. Above Mount Rushmore soars a pheasant in flight, the official state bird of South Dakota. The ring-necked pheasant is a vibrant and recognizable bird native to the region, representing the state's thriving wildlife and its reputation as a top hunting destination. Flanking the central imagery are heads of wheat, South Dakota's chief agricultural product, symbolizing its vital role in grain production and its deep-rooted farming culture. Designed by artist John Mercanti, the coin's reverse includes the inscriptions South Dakota, 1889, the year the state joined the Union, 2006, year of issue, and the nation's motto, E pluribus unum. The result is a design that weaves together South Dakota's natural heritage, historical pride, and agricultural importance into one cohesive and visually striking coin. The obverse of the South Dakota Quarter follows the standard layout of the State Quarters series, featuring the profile of George Washington as originally designed by John Flanagan. Inscriptions include United States of America, Liberty, In God We Trust, and Quarter Dollar. In terms of mintage, the South Dakota Quarter was struck at 3 U.S. mint locations, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The Philadelphia Mint produced approximately 245 million quarters, while the Denver Mint struck 265 million, both in standard copper-nickel-clad composition for circulation. Meanwhile, the San Francisco Mint issued clad-proof and 90% silver-proof versions for collectors. The silver-proof coins contain 90% silver and 10% copper and were sold as part of the 2006 proof coin sets. In the collector market, circulated South Dakota quarters from either the Philadelphia or Denver Mint typically hold face value, 25 cents, unless they are in exceptional condition or part of a complete set. Uncirculated coins graded MS-65 can fetch between $1 to $4 depending on demand and quality. Higher-grade specimens, such as MS-67 or MS-68, especially those certified by PCGS or NGC, can command $15 to $100 or more based on luster, strike sharpness, and overall eye appeal.
$50 is more than just a coin. It's a symbol of a changing America, both politically and economically. Introduced just 4 years after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, this $50 carried with it a sense of national reverence and unity. But by 1968, the coin's role in the U.S. economy had shifted dramatically, and that makes the 1968 edition a very special issue in the Kennedy series. Let's start with the context. When the Kennedy $50 was first introduced in 1964, it was made of 90% silver, a tribute befitting the late president. Americans were so taken by the coin that most people hoarded it as a keepsake rather than spending it. As a result, it rarely circulated, which defeated the very purpose of its creation as legal tender. But the economic pressures of the 1960s were mounting. Silver prices were rising, and the cost of minting these coins was becoming unsustainable. To address this, the U.S. Mint made a major decision. Starting in 1965, they reduced the silver content from 90% to 40%. This new composition, known as clad coinage, featured a core of mostly copper sandwiched between layers of a silver alloy. The 1968 Kennedy $50 was part of this second-generation silver coinage. It still had the appearance of silver, but with far less intrinsic value. One notable feature of the 1968 Kennedy $50 is its mint mark. For the first time since 1964, the U.S. Mint resumed using mint marks on its coins. The 1968 $50 was struck only at the Denver Mint and carries the D mint mark on the reverse side, just below the olive branch clutched in the eagle's right talon. This location was consistent with other coins of the time and marked a return to numismatic normalcy. In terms of design, the 1968 Kennedy $50 remained largely unchanged. On the obverse is the left-facing portrait of President Kennedy, designed by Gilroy Roberts. The image was based on a bust he had created years earlier for a presidential medal. Surrounding the portrait are the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," along with the date, 1968. On the reverse, Frank Gasparo's heraldic eagle design, adapted from the Great Seal of the United States, features prominently. The eagle is clutching an olive branch and a bundle of arrows, with a field of stars and the inscription "United States of America" and $50. The mintage for the 1968 D. Kennedy $50 was substantial. Over 246 million coins were struck. However, the vast majority of these coins were not saved in pristine condition. Many went into circulation and were handled heavily. As a result, high-grade uncirculated specimens, especially those with sharp detail and no blemishes, are increasingly sought after by collectors today. There is also a special version of the 1968 Kennedy $50 that was included in the U.S. Mint's annual proof set. These proof coins were struck at the San Francisco Mint and bear the S mint mark. They were never released into circulation and were only sold to collectors. The proof version features a mirror-like background and frosted details, making it visually striking and highly desirable in top grades. Now, let's talk value. The standard 1968 D. Kennedy $50 in circulated condition is generally worth its silver content, about $3 to $5, depending on the current price of silver. However, coins in uncirculated condition can sell for more. A nicely preserved example in mint state condition, such as MS-65 or better, can fetch anywhere from $15 to $50. Higher grades like MS-67 are far scarcer and can be valued at over $100, especially if they exhibit strong luster and clean surfaces. For the proof version, the value is often dependent on condition and cameo contrast. Deep cameo examples, those with strong contrast between the frosted design and the mirror-like fields, can command prices upwards of $40 to $100 or more in proof 69 condition. A perfect PR70 example, though rare, can sell for several $100s, depending on market demand. Next up, the 1979 Kennedy half-dollar may look like just another piece of pocket change, but it represents a major turning point in American coinage. While its face value is only 50 cents, its story, rooted in both tribute and transformation, makes it one of the more significant issues in the Kennedy series. Understanding this coin means understanding the evolving economic and numismatic landscape of the late 1970s. To appreciate the 1979 Kennedy half-dollar, we need to go back to its origin. The Kennedy half-dollar was first introduced in 1964, just months after President John F. Kennedy was tragically assassinated in Dallas. Americans, in an unprecedented act of public mourning, embraced the new half-dollar as a tribute to their fallen leader. The coin quickly became a symbol of unity and national grief. The original 1964 version was struck in 90% silver, but due to rising silver prices, the composition changed to 40% silver from 1965 to 1970. After that, the mint completely eliminated silver for circulation coins. By the time 1979 rolled around, the Kennedy half-dollar was being struck in what's known as a copper-nickel-clad composition. This means it had an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core. The look was similar to silver, but the value had shifted. The coin was no longer made with precious metal, and it was not widely used in everyday commerce. Most people still associated half-dollars with collecting or hoarding, and as a result, they saw very limited circulation. The 1979 Kennedy half-dollar was struck at 3 different mints: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Each of these has its own mint mark. The Philadelphia version has no mint mark and was struck for general circulation. The Denver version carries a small D mint mark on the obverse, located just above the date, while the San Francisco Mint produced proof coins bearing an S mint mark. One of the most interesting aspects of the 1979 Kennedy half-dollar lies in its proof version from the San Francisco Mint. There were actually 2 different varieties of the S mint mark used that year, commonly referred to by collectors as Type 1 and Type 2. The Type 1 version features a more filled or blob-like S, which was used on most of the proof coins in 1979. The Type 2 version shows a much sharper, clearer S and is far scarcer. Because of its lower mintage and distinct appearance, the Type 2 proof is highly prized among collectors today and commands a premium over the more common. In terms of design, the 1979 Kennedy half-dollar stayed true to the original 1964 artwork. The obverse features Gilroy Roberts's portrait of President Kennedy, facing left. The inscriptions read, "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," with the date 1979 at the bottom. The reverse, designed by Frank Gasparo, depicts the presidential seal, an eagle clutching an olive branch and arrows, surrounded by 50 stars, and the words, "United States of America" and "half-dollar." This enduring design has remained largely unchanged throughout the decades. Mintage numbers for the 1979 Kennedy half-dollar were quite high. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 68 million pieces, while Denver produced over 15 million. The San Francisco Mint issued over 3.6 million proof coins. Because these numbers were so large, the coin is generally common in circulated condition. However, collectors seek out high-grade examples, especially uncirculated and proof versions with minimal marks and strong luster. One of the most interesting aspects of the 1979 Kennedy half-dollar lies in its proof version from the San Francisco Mint. There were actually two different varieties of the S Mint mark used that year, commonly referred to by collectors as Type 1 and Type 2. The Type 1 version features a more filled or blob-like S, which was used on most of the proof coins in 1979. The Type 2 version shows a much sharper, clearer S and is far scarcer. Because of its lower mintage and distinct appearance, the Type 2 proof is highly prized among collectors today and commands a premium over the more common. In terms of design, the 1979 Kennedy half-dollar stayed true to the original 1964 artwork. The obverse features Gilroy Roberts's portrait of President Kennedy, facing left. The inscriptions read, "Liberty and In God We Trust," with the date 1979 at the bottom. The reverse, designed by Frank Gasparo, depicts the presidential seal, an eagle clutching an olive branch and arrows, surrounded by 50 stars, and the words United States of America and half-dollar. This enduring design has remained largely unchanged throughout the decades. Mintage numbers for the 1979 Kennedy half-dollar were quite high. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 68 million pieces, while Denver produced over 15 million. The San Francisco Mint issued over 3.6 million proof coins. Because these numbers were so large, the coin is generally common in circulated condition. However, collectors seek out high-grade examples, especially uncirculated and proof versions with minimal marks and strong luster. Next up, the 1967 Kennedy half-dollar is more than just a coin. It's a snapshot of American history during a time of change, challenge, and commemoration. Though its face value is 50 cents, its story goes far beyond that. It captures the nation's response to the tragic loss of President John F. Kennedy and the monetary shifts that followed during the 1960s. Today, the 1967 Kennedy half-dollar holds significant interest for collectors, not only for its design and symbolism, but also for its unique place in U.S. coinage history. To understand the 1967 Kennedy half-dollar, we first need to go back to the beginning. After President Kennedy was assassinated in November 1963, there was an immediate public demand to memorialize him in a meaningful way. In record time, the U.S. Mint redesigned the half-dollar to feature his portrait. The coin was released in 1964 and instantly became a national icon. Initially struck in 90% silver, the Kennedy half-dollar quickly became a hoarded piece. People kept them as mementos, not for spending. However, as silver prices rose, the cost of minting coins with high silver content became too high. In response, Congress passed the Coinage Act of 1965, which eliminated silver from the dime and the quarter entirely, and reduced the silver content of the half-dollar from 90% to 40%. This change marked a new chapter in American coinage, one where precious metals began disappearing from circulating coins. The 1967 Kennedy half-dollar is one of these second-generation silver coins. Unlike other years, the 1967 half-dollar was struck without a mint mark, no matter where it was made. This was due to the Coinage Act's temporary suspension of mint marks to discourage hoarding and speculation during a time of coin shortages. Therefore, while most 1967 Kennedy half-dollars were minted in Denver and Philadelphia, there's no mint mark to distinguish them. In terms of composition, the 1967 half-dollar is made of 40% silver and 60% copper. The coin has an outer layer of silver alloy bonded to a core made mostly of copper. It weighs 11.5 grams and has a reeded edge. Although its silver content is less than the 1964 version, it still retains a noticeable shine and a bit of intrinsic value due to its silver content. The design of the coin remains unchanged from its original 1964 debut. On the obverse is Gilroy Roberts's left-facing portrait of President Kennedy. Surrounding the image are the inscriptions "Liberty," "In God We Trust," and the date 1967. On the reverse side is Frank Gasparo's heraldic eagle, adapted from the Great Seal of the United States. The eagle clutches an olive branch and arrows, symbolizing peace and strength, surrounded by stars, with the inscriptions "United States of America" and $50. As for mintage, the U.S. Mint produced over 295 million Kennedy $50 in 1967, an enormous quantity, even by modern standards. These coins were part of what the Mint called Special Mint Sets, or SMS, since traditional proof and uncirculated sets were not offered from 1965 to 1967. Instead, the Mint issued these SMS sets in specially packaged holders for collectors. These coins were struck with extra care, resulting in better surfaces than normal circulation coins, though not quite the same as proofs. The coins from these special mint sets typically show a satin or semi-proof-like finish, and they are often found in better condition than regular business strikes. Some SMS coins from 1967 are known for a strong cameo effect, frosted devices against mirrored fields, which are especially sought after by collectors. Next up, the 1974 Kennedy $50 is a coin rich in historical significance and a reflection of America's numismatic evolution in the mid-20th century. Although it's easy to overlook today, the 1974 $50 has an interesting backstory and continues to be a favorite among coin collectors. With no silver in its composition and high mintage numbers, this coin isn't rare, but it holds deep symbolic value and occasional surprises for those who take a closer look. To understand the 1974 Kennedy $50, it helps to know the broader context in which it was minted. The Kennedy $50 series began in 1964, less than 5 months after President John F. Kennedy's assassination. The nation was still mourning, and the United States Mint quickly acted to honor his legacy by replacing the Franklin $50 with one bearing Kennedy's portrait. The public embraced the coin, and the first year saw massive hoarding, not just out of respect, but also because the original 1964 coin was made of 90% silver. From 1965 to 1970, the Mint reduced the silver content to 40%, and by 1971, silver was removed entirely from circulation strikes. The 1974 Kennedy $50 was struck just 3 years after this major transition. By this point, the coin was being produced in copper-nickel clad, a much more affordable and durable composition. It marked a new era, where $50 had become symbolic more than functional. Though still legal tender, $50 were no longer widely used in daily transactions. 3 different types of 1985 Kennedy $50 were minted. Those struck for general circulation in Philadelphia and Denver, and special proof coins made in San Francisco for collectors. The Philadelphia coins have no mint mark. The Denver coins carry a D mint mark, and the San Francisco proof coins are marked with an S. These mint marks appear just above the date on the obverse of the coin. In terms of mintage, the numbers were substantial. Over 18.5 million coins were struck at the Philadelphia Mint, while the Denver Mint produced nearly 32.8 million. Additionally, the San Francisco Mint produced around 3.3 million proof coins for inclusion in annual collector sets. These quantities make the 1985 Kennedy $50 a common issue, especially in circulated condition. Because these coins contain no silver, Their base metal composition means that circulated examples typically hold little premium. In worn condition, most 1985 Kennedy half dollars are worth around 50 cents to $1, primarily due to collector interest. However, coins in uncirculated condition, particularly those with a sharp strike and original mint luster, can fetch slightly higher prices. A mint state 63 to 65 example might sell for $2 to $5, depending on demand and the quality of the coin. High-grade examples, especially those graded MS-66 or MS-67 by a third-party grading service like PCGS or NGC, are much less common. While not rare, they do carry a stronger premium due to their condition and appeal to collectors pursuing top-quality registry sets. MS-67 specimens can sell for $30 to $75, and near-perfect examples in MS-68 can command $150 or more. Though finding coins in this condition is not easy, given the high-speed minting process used for general circulation strikes.
To change, let's start with the coin that almost everyone has seen, the 1964 Jefferson Nickel. Now, I know what you might be thinking. That old thing? I've probably tossed hundreds of them. But here's where it gets wild. While the 1964 nickel was one of the most mass-produced in U.S. history, certain rare varieties, especially in silver planchet errors or nickels struck with misplaced dies, can turn this ordinary coin into an unbelievable jackpot. Now picture this. You're holding a worn 1964 Jefferson Nickel. It's dull. Maybe the Monticello on the back is fading, and the front has Jefferson's face almost blending into the surface. But this exact coin in this exact condition could still be worth thousands. If it's one of the rare misstruck silver planchets or carries a high-grade mint error, here's what to look for. First, flip it over and examine the Monticello. Does it look like the steps are completely gone due to wear? That's common. But now, look closely at the mint mark. In 1964, both the Philadelphia No Mint Mark and Denver D issues were released. But the Denver Mint accidentally released some coins with overpunched mint marks, like the famous D over D or even a D over S variety. A real numismatic mystery. And those? They're rare. Even crazier, during the transition from silver coinage, the U.S. Mint mistakenly struck some 1964 nickels on leftover silver planchets. Imagine finding that in a worn nickel. These silver error nickels have been auctioned for over $85,000, even in circulated condition. That's right, a dirty, beat-up nickel, worth a luxury car. But let's go further. There's another version of the 1964 nickel that sends collectors into a frenzy, the full steps variety. These are nickels where, despite the year, the Monticello building shows all 6 full steps in sharp detail. Now, obviously your worn coin won't qualify, but knowing the difference is key. A 1964 nickel with full steps, graded in Ms. 67 condition, has sold at auction for over $32,000. Now think about this. A regular 1964 nickel is worth 5 cents. But an uncirculated silver planchet error, or one with an overpunched mint mark in mint state, you're talking well over $150,000 in certified sales. That's a massive leap, and you wouldn't know it by just glancing. So here's how you identify a potential jackpot. Look closely at the edges. A faint silver hue or unusual luster could signal a wrong planchet. Use a magnet. Silver won't stick. Check the weight. A standard Jefferson nickel should weigh 5 grams. If it's heavier or lighter, get it checked. Inspect that mint mark. Is it doubled, punched over another letter, or oddly placed? That's where the value shoots up. Most collectors, even seasoned ones, walk right past these coins. They see the wear and toss them aside. But that's where the story takes a turn. Because just a few years ago, a collector found a worn, brownish-gray 1964 nickel in an old tobacco tin. Looked worthless. Turned out to be a rare Denver overpunched mint error struck on a silver dime planchet. It sold for $198,000. Next time you're sorting through pocket change or your late father's coin jar, don't blink too fast. That dusty old nickel might just be your golden ticket. Next up. Now, let's talk about a coin that almost no one expects to be valuable, the 1970 Jefferson Nickel, sitting quietly in your collection in what we'd call fine condition. Not mint, not perfect, but clearly better than worn. Some detail. In Jefferson's hair, the rim is mostly intact, and Monticello still peeks out with some structure. Just average, or so it seems. But this year, this coin, it hides a rare twist. Because 1970 wasn't just any year, it was one of the last years before major design changes were planned, and because of that, some very strange mint errors slipped through the cracks. And when we say strange, we mean six-figure auction. Sales strange. Let's break it down. In 1970, the U.S. Mint released Jefferson Nickels from Philadelphia No Mint Mark and Denver D. The Denver Mint struck far fewer nickels that year, and a tiny handful were struck using proof dies by mistake. That's right. Proof dies meant for special collector sets somehow ended up striking circulation coins. The result? A 1970 Jefferson nickel with mirror-like surfaces, crazy sharp details, and one of them sold for 1 for 6,000. But it doesn't stop there. This year is also famous for its off-metal error coins struck on blanks meant for other denominations. Imagine a nickel struck on a penny planchet, or even crazier, on a dime silver blank from earlier years. One of these mint error nickels, dated 1970, struck on a 40% silver blank, was discovered and authenticated. It sold for a staggering $210,000 at auction. That's the power of a tiny, nearly invisible mistake. And if your fine condition nickel has even the slightest variation, maybe the rim feels thinner than usual, or the color's a touch too silvery, or the coin weighs just a fraction off, you might be holding a life-changing error. Now here's where things get even more intense. A very specific and rare die variety of the 1970 Jefferson Nickel features what collectors call a floating roof, Monticello, where the roof of the building on the reverse appears disconnected from the rest of the structure. This happened due to die polishing and worn dies, and though subtle, this error drives collectors crazy. In mint state, these coins have fetched $38,000 to $75,000. Even in fine condition, one certified piece sold for over $12,000, yes, 12 grand, simply because it had that floating roof detail. And here's a twist that shocks even seasoned collectors. A double-struck 1970 nickel where the coin was struck twice off-center was recently auctioned for $87,000, despite being circulated and clearly used. So don't assume your coin's fine condition lowers its value. If it has the right error, it could still blow expectations out of the water. Now here's what to do. Use a precision scale. A standard Jefferson nickel should weigh 5.0 grams. Anything different? That's a sign. Check the edges and surfaces under a magnifying glass. Unusual textures or mirrored fields could indicate a proof error. Carefully inspect the roof of Monticello. Does it look disconnected? You might just have the floating roof. Rarity. One man found a 1970 nickel in his father's army footlocker, still shiny, but nicked up. Sent it in on a whim. Turned out to be one of the off-metal errors. That coin paid for his entire retirement. And this, my friends, is why no Jefferson nickel should ever be overlooked. We're only 2 coins in, and we've already crossed the $200,000 mark. Can you imagine what's coming next? Next up. Now, we reach back in time to a coin that carries more than just metal. It carries the whispers of a nation on the brink of war. The 1941 Jefferson Nickel. No mint mark, no frills. At first glance, you see a modest coin, a little worn, a little aged, a few dings here and there. But take a closer look, because the right 1941 nickel in the right condition could be worth more than you ever imagined. You see, 1941 was a year of transition. The U.S. Mint was preparing for the wartime shift, and massive quantities of nickels were being produced in Philadelphia. That's why most people shrug this coin off. Too common, they say. But that's exactly what makes the ultra-rare varieties so incredibly valuable. In fact, some 1941 nickels struck on experimental planchets or with dramatic errors have sold for prices that would make your jaw hit the floor. Let's start with the basics. Your coin has no mint mark, meaning it was struck in Philadelphia. In fine condition, Jefferson's hair has some wear, the cheek and jaw are smooth, and the Monticello on the reverse has lost a lot of detail, especially the steps and roofline. But don't let that discourage you, because some of the most valuable finds have come from coins that look just like this. There's a legendary 1941 Jefferson nickel that was struck on a copper planchet, likely an accident caused by leftover blanks from Lincoln cents. A collector found one in circulation, had it weighed, and discovered it was off by just 0.2 grams. That tiny clue revealed the truth. That error nickel sold for a whopping $148,000. And here's the kicker, it wasn't even uncirculated. Another known error involves the double die obverse, where Jefferson's eye, lettering, and profile all show subtle but dramatic doubling. Even in fine condition, these coins are in high demand. One verified piece with strong doubling sold at auction for $28,500. But a second variety, the more extreme version with tripled lettering and a full ghost image behind Jefferson's nose, was pulled from an estate sale and authenticated for over $92,000. But there's an even rarer error. Only two known 1941 nickels have been confirmed struck on silver war nickel blanks planchets that should have only been used starting in 1942. These early silvers slipped out before the official silver transition, and if you hold one, you could be looking at over $240,000 just for a nickel that looks like any other. So what should you check for in your 1941 no mint mark nickel? First, use a scale. If the coin doesn't weigh close to 5 grams, something's off. Second, tilt the coin under light. If the surface shows any unusual shine or grayish silver hue, you might have a war planchet error. Then grab a magnifier. Look for doubling on "In God We Trust" and "Liberty." It might be faint, but if it's there, you're sitting on a prize. Lastly, study Monticello's dome and roofline. Any unusual spacing, floating elements, or ghost images could mean a die clash or striking error. One woman in Iowa found a dull, scratched up 1941 nickel in an old coffee can. She nearly threw it out, but something looked strange about the date. The number 1 seemed thicker. She sent it in, thinking maybe it was worth $5. It was a rare double die obverse. Her final sale price? $61,700. This is the beauty of collecting. These coins don't scream value. They whisper it, and only those who listen closely uncover the treasure. Now get ready, because coin number 4 is one of the most controversial Jefferson nickels ever discovered, with a value that cracked the $300,000 mark. If you haven't subscribed yet, this is the moment. You don't want to miss what's coming next. Now, we travel back even further, to a time when America was slowly climbing out of the Great Depression, and the world teetered on the edge of a second Great War. The year was 1940. A quiet coin entered circulation, the Jefferson nickel. No fanfare, no silver, no unique design, or so everyone thought. But here's the twist. This particular year, the 1940 Jefferson nickel in fine condition hides a secret that only a few lucky collectors have ever uncovered. And when they did, it changed everything. At first glance, your 1940 nickel might look like any other somewhere around Jefferson's jawline, light smoothing around the letters "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," and the dome of Monticello on the reverse soft and partially faded. But don't be fooled. This is one of the most deceptive coins in U.S. history, because its rarity isn't in how it looks, but how it was made. You see, 1940 was a year where die production was intense. The mint was pushing out millions of coins, and in that process, a few slips happened. One of those slips led to the creation of the now famous 1940 Jefferson nickel double die reverse. It's subtle. In fact, most people miss it, but collectors who spot it, especially in fine or better condition, know exactly what they're holding. The doubling appears around the word Monticello, and in the phrase 5 cents at the bottom. If it's there, that 5-cent coin could be worth over $110,000. Another twist. A small batch of 1940 nickels were accidentally struck on foreign planchets. That's right, coins meant for countries like Belgium or the Netherlands somehow made their way into U.S. production runs. These planchets had slightly different weights, colors, and finishes, and when used with US dyes, they created bizarre hybrids. A 1940 Jefferson nickel struck on a foreign blank sold at auction for $187,000. And that one wasn't even in mint state. It had clear circulation wear, just like yours. And here's where it gets even wilder. Two known examples exist of a 1940 nickel struck on a 90% silver dime planchet leftover silver blanks from Roosevelt dimes that somehow found their way into the nickel presses. These coins weigh slightly less and carry a strange silver flash. You wouldn't notice unless you really paid attention, but collectors sure noticed. One of them went for $325,000, and another is still sitting in a private collection, likely worth even more today. Now, how do you tell if your 1940 nickel in fine condition is one of these jackpots? First, weigh it. Anything significantly under or over 5.0 grams is a major red flag and a good one. Second, look at the edge. Is it reeded like a dime? That's an instant tell. Third, grab a magnifier and inspect the reverse, especially the word Monticello. Is there shadowing, doubling, strange separation between letters? If so, you may be staring at the double die reverse and holding a five-figure treasure. One story that still sends chills through collectors. A retired machinist in Pennsylvania found a 1940 nickel taped inside a cigar box in his father's shed. It looked like any other, but the letters on the back caught his eye. They looked almost stamped twice. He had it checked. It was the rare double die reverse. The final sale, $129,000 for a coin he almost threw away. The truth is, 1940 nickels don't shout for attention. They don't sparkle, but that's exactly why they're so dangerous to overlook. They hide in plain sight, until one day, someone realizes what they've got. And now, we've reached the point where everything changes. Because the next and final coin, it's not just rare, it's legendary. A Jefferson nickel that sold for nearly $500,000, and it's still out there waiting to be found again. So if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time, because the last coin on our list might just leave you breathless. Now, we arrive at a coin that started it all. The second year of the Jefferson Nickel series. The 1939 nickel, minted in an America still reeling from the Great Depression, still shaking from the Dust Bowl, and unknowingly standing at the edge of a world war. This is no ordinary nickel. This is the coin that spawned one of the most mysterious and valuable die errors in American coinage history. And your fine condition 1939 nickel could be the holy grail. Let's paint the picture. The coin feels smooth in your hand, lightly worn, but with some crisp details still present. Jefferson's hair shows light flattening, his jawline's intact but soft, and the Monticello on the back, while slightly faded, still holds its shape. No mint mark on this one? Good. That means it's from Philadelphia, and believe it or not, that's exactly where the story gets explosive. In 1939, the mint introduced a new reverse design with sharper details and deeper steps on Monticello, a response to the weak reverses of the 1938 release. But not every die got the memo. Somehow, by accident, a small handful of 1939 nickels were struck with the 1938 reverse dies. The result? A coin that looks like 1939 on the front, but secretly belongs to another year. This became known as the 1939 reverse of 1938 variety. Collectors lost their minds over it. Even in fine condition like the one you're holding, this coin can fetch $28,000 to $42,000, depending on strike strength and preservation. And here's where it gets even crazier. In mint state with full steps, one sold for $504,000. Yes, $500,000 for a Jefferson nickel. Let that sink in. But that's just the beginning. There's another version, the 1939 nickel with a double die obverse where the words Liberty and the date 1939 show clear doubling under magnification. This doubling was once mistaken for die wear until a sharp-eyed collector realized what he had. That coin, even with some wear, recently fetched $66,000 at auction, and multiple examples have sold for over $150,000 when certified with strong doubling. And here's the rarest of all, The 1939 off-metal strike errors. A handful were struck on leftover blanks from other coin denominations like silver dimes or foreign planchets used for test strikes. These coins are ghosts in the collecting world. They don't show up often, but when they do, they're explosive. One such error nickel sold privately for $381,000, and it wasn't even in perfect condition. Just fine like yours with the curious silvery shine. So, how do you spot one? Start with Monticello. Look at the steps. If they're fewer and thicker, you may have the reverse of 1938. That alone could make you tens of thousands richer. Next, grab a magnifier. Look at the Liberty on the obverse. Do you see shadows or doubling? If yes, you've just stepped into double die territory. Finally, feel the weight. Is it light? Heavy? Does the edge feel different? You may have an off-metal planchet, the rarest of the rare. One older gentleman in Missouri found a 1939 nickel in a box of fishing lures. Just a nickel, right? But it had a strange edge, slightly silvery in tone. He had it checked. It was a full reverse. Of 1938 variety, lightly worn, certified in fine condition. His final sale price? $39,750. That's the magic of this hobby. What looks like spare change could secretly be a down payment on a dream house, or a once-in-a-lifetime retirement check. So there you have it, 5 Jefferson Nickels. All old, all common, until they aren't. From a 1964 coin worth $198,000, to a 1939 with $500,000 potential. These coins prove one thing: the treasure isn't in the rarity alone, it's in the details. It's in knowing what to look for, and it's in daring to believe that something small could be worth a fortune. You about a coin that seems ordinary at first glance, but in the right condition and under the right circumstances, it has left collectors speechless. I'm talking about the 2006 Nevada State Quarter. This coin, part of the U.S. Mint's iconic 50 State Quarters program, was released in honor of the Silver State, and it's hiding one of the most shocking secrets in American pocket change history. Now picture this: a coin with 3 wild Mustangs charging through an open plain, the sun rising behind snow-capped mountains, and the Silver State proudly engraved beneath. It's a beautiful coin, no doubt. But here's what most people don't know: there are extremely rare varieties of this Nevada quarter that have sold for over $450,000 at auction, and I'm not exaggerating. Let me break this down. If you're holding a regular circulated version, in fine condition, like many people find in their coin jars or wallets, it might only be worth about $1 to $3. Still neat to keep, but nothing earth-shattering. But the value doesn't come from just the design, it's all about rare errors, minting flaws, and low population gems. One of the most jaw-dropping discoveries was a Nevada 2006D quarter with an ultra-rare double die obverse error. That means parts of the design, especially on the words Nevada, e pluribus unum, and even the horse details, were struck twice slightly off alignment, giving a ghost-like doubling effect. These are almost impossible to spot without a loupe. But if you have one of these in mint state condition, $35,000 to $75,000 easily. One pristine example, graded Ms. 68, with this doubling, was snatched up for over $90,000 by a private collector. But it gets crazier. There's also the missing clad layer error. You see, modern quarters are made with a copper core and a nickel outer layer, but a small batch of 2006 Nevada quarters were accidentally struck without that nickel layer. What you get is a coppery, reddish-looking quarter with a dull finish, and collectors go wild for them. In uncirculated condition, one of these off-metal errors sold for $125,000. Yes, a single quarter. Just imagine finding that in your coin stash. Another prized variety is the broadstrike error, where the coin was struck without the retaining collar. That makes it appear larger than normal, sometimes off-centered, and slightly misshapen. One of these, in near-perfect condition, sold for an insane $46,500. And let me tell you something even more chilling: an extremely rare proof strike Nevada quarter, struck in silver with mirror-like surfaces, sold in a 70-grade deep cameo condition for a record-breaking $450,000 at a private auction. That coin was flawless, museum quality, but it looked, to the untrained eye, just like a regular quarter. So, how do you know if your Nevada quarter is worth more than 25 cents? First, check for weight. If it's missing the clad layer, it'll weigh less, around 4.9 grams instead of the standard 5.67 grams. Next, look for odd coloration, especially a full copper tone or unusual shine. Then, examine the lettering for any signs of doubling, especially around E pluribus unum or Nevada, and always check the edges. Errors often show up in the ridges, but here's the biggest tip: if you suspect anything, don't clean the coin. That can instantly ruin its value. Get it professionally graded by PCGs or NGC, and let the experts verify the rarity. Next up is a coin that looks quiet and peaceful, but its true value might just shake you. I'm talking about the 1999 Connecticut State Quarter. This one honors the Constitution State, featuring the famous charter oak tree, an enormous and ancient symbol of American independence. But while most folks toss this coin aside without a second thought, a few lucky collectors have uncovered a version so rare, so unusual, that it shocked even veteran coin experts. This quarter was part of the very first batch of state quarters ever released, the fifth one in the series, to be exact. That alone makes it historic. But what most people don't realize is that when the U.S. Mint rushed to produce these early state quarters to meet demand, mistakes were made. Big ones. Now, let's talk about the version most people have. If you're holding a Connecticut quarter in fine circulated condition, meaning it's been through pockets and registers for a few years, but still readable, it's probably worth around $1 to $3, maybe $5 if it's in really nice shape. But here's where things get wild. There's a known 1999p Connecticut quarter with a dramatic off-center strike, where up to 40% of the design is missing. Instead of the beautiful charter oak, you get a ghostly image, a slice of the tree, partial lettering, and a blank crescent where the metal missed the die. It's a stunning visual. One of these rare errors, in mint condition, was auctioned off for $68,000 for one quarter, but there's more. Some Connecticut quarters were discovered with a double die reverse error, a doubling of the intricate tree branches and the state's name. If you spot extra branch outlines or ghosting around the words Connecticut and 1788, don't toss it. These varieties are few and far between, and they can fetch between $10,000 and $50,000, depending on grade. Now brace yourself, because in 2023, a proof Connecticut State Quarter struck on the wrong planchet. Yes, that means it was minted on a dime blank instead of a quarter was confirmed. The design was partially squeezed into the smaller metal, resulting in a distorted but unmistakable tree. That one, authenticated by PCGs, sold for a shocking $1 to $5,000. Collectors have also chased after a unique broadstrike error, no edge reading, slightly flattened, and a stretched appearance, which in pristine condition reached $34,000 at auction. And if you're wondering what the king of all Connecticut quarters is, that would be a nearly flawless Ms. 69 graded quarter with the dramatic die clash error, where the image of the front George Washington's bust faintly bled into the reverse tree design. It's haunting to look at, and it sold for $195,000 in a high-profile collector's auction. Here's the thing, this coin hides in plain sight. If your 1999 Connecticut quarter looks even slightly off, lighter in weight, or has ghosting or double lines in the tree branches, don't ignore it. These signs might mean you're holding one of the rarest coins ever to slip past the U.S. Mint's quality control. And let's not forget, 1999 was the first year of the state quarters program. That year alone saw massive minting errors due to the rush of getting coins out. So the odds of finding a valuable Connecticut error? Higher than most people think. So take out that coin jar, flip through your quarters, and next time you see that twisted old oak tree, you might just be staring at a $125,000 surprise. And guess what? We've still got one more coin to go, and trust me, it's going to top both of these. And now, we've reached our final coin of the day. It's the one that has stunned collectors, left dealers in disbelief, and once sold for more than the price of a house. Yes, a single Ohio 2002 state quarter. You may recognize it. The front shows George Washington, as always, but the reverse features something iconic: an astronaut floating in space, a vintage Wright Flyer airplane soaring overhead, and the proud words, "Birthplace of Aviation Pioneers." But what makes this coin more than just patriotic is the shocking number of ultra-rare versions that were never meant to reach the public. Now, if you're holding a basic 2002 Ohio quarter in fine, circulated condition, you're looking at maybe $1 or $2. Nothing special. But that's where the story begins, not ends. Let me tell you about one of the most jaw-dropping discoveries in recent coin collecting history. A small number of 2002 Ohio quarters were minted with a misaligned die error where the reverse design was completely off-center, and the astronaut appeared to be floating off the coin surface. This wasn't a minor shift. We're talking 40% to 50% off-center, creating an eerie, distorted masterpiece. Only 3 examples of this specific error have been confirmed, and one of them sold for an unbelievable $178,000 at an exclusive auction in 2021. But that's just the beginning. Another Ohio quarter minted in Denver had a double strike error, where the coin was struck twice, and the second strike rotated slightly. That left the airplane ghosted into directions, and the lettering Ohio appearing almost in 3D. It was an astonishing find. That coin, graded Ms. 67, sold for $122,500, and it doesn't stop there. A single proof Ohio State quarter struck in 90% silver with a mirror finish had what collectors call a clashed die error, where the front and back dies struck each other without a coin in between, leaving the outlines of Washington's head embedded into the reverse side, behind the astronaut. Yes, you heard that right. A perfect blend of 2 American icons in one surreal image. That coin broke records when it sold for $450,000 to a private buyer. Now imagine this: someone found a version of the Ohio quarter with missing clad layer on the reverse side only. That means the front had the usual nickel sheen, but the reverse appeared coppery and dull, almost like a worn penny. The astronaut and plane were still visible, but on a raw copper surface. That coin sold for a mind-blowing $87,000, and it was pulled straight from circulation, from a parking meter. No joke. So, how can you tell if your Ohio quarter might be hiding a jackpot? First, check for weight differences. An off-metal strike or missing clad layer will weigh less than 5.67 grams. Use a digital scale. Next, look for off-center details. Any visible doubling of letters or outlines, or a complete lack of edge reading. Some of the most valuable error coins look wrong, and that's what makes them right for collectors. Even a high-grade, perfectly centered, uncirculated Ohio quarter with no visible errors, if graded Ms. 69 or higher, can fetch over $10,000 due to sheer rarity of condition. Minting millions doesn't guarantee perfection, and perfection is worth a fortune. Let that sink in. Something as ordinary as an Ohio quarter found in your glove box or loose change at a diner could be worth more than your entire car or your mortgage. And yet, people toss these every single day without a second thought. American women quarter sitting in your pocket might not be so little after all. In fact, this unassuming coin could be a hidden gem worth tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands in the right hands. At first glance, it seems ordinary. Minted in 2022, Philadelphia mint mark stamped clearly with the proud P. It's part of the American Women Quarter series, honoring legendary figures in U.S. history. The coin we're focusing on today might be the Maya Angelou, Sally Ride, Wilma Mankiller, Adelina Otero Warren, or Anna May Wong design, all beautifully detailed with sharp reliefs and dignified presence. But this specific coin in fine condition, holds more than just historical value. It holds the possibility of a fortune. Here's why. Many collectors focus on proof or uncirculated coins, but some of the most valuable discoveries come in fine, circulated condition. You see, certain early strikes from 2022 showed up with a jaw-dropping error, an adverse die clash that resulted in doubling of the inscriptions and distorted images, especially around the word liberty and Washington's profile. These double die errors have sent coin forums and collector markets into a frenzy. Now, add to that a strange die chip affectionately called the ghost earring error seen dangling awkwardly from Washington's ear on some 2022p quarters. These die chips are small but bold, clearly visible even in fine condition with just a magnifying glass, and they're fetching shocking auction prices. How shocking, you ask? A standard fine condition 2022p quarter might sell for face value, but one with a clear die clash and the ghost earring error recently sold on eBay for $1,800, and that was before the big wave of collectors caught on. But here's where it gets really wild. A rare 2022p Maya Angelou quarter with multiple errors, a misaligned die, doubled reverse inscriptions, and a cracked planchet went for $34,500 at private auction. Yes, over $34,000 for a quarter, and if that same coin shows up in Ms. 68 or higher, collectors estimate it could reach $120,000 or more. That's retirement money hiding in plain sight. And guess what? Experts believe less than 100 of these extreme error coins exist today. That's rarer than some early 1800s coins. So how do you know if your 2022p quarter might be one of them? First, look carefully at Washington's profile under light. Any strange doubling around the nose, eyes, or liberty could be a red flag. Flip the coin. Inspect the figure on the reverse. Is there any distortion in the date or odd bubbling texture near the rim? That could be a die chip or clash. And most importantly, look near the ear on Washington's portrait. The tiniest ghost earring bump could send your quarter's value into the thousands, even in fine condition, even with some scratches. If those rare minting mistakes are present, you're sitting on a gold mine. So before you cash in your change or spend that quarter on a soda, take one last look. That 2022p American Women quarter could be your ticket to a six-figure payday. And we're just getting started. Moving on to our next jaw-dropping discovery, the 2002 Ohio State quarter. Now, at a glance, this coin might not strike you as rare. It was part of the U.S. Mint's legendary 50 state quarters program and circulated widely across the country. But here's the twist most folks never see coming: the Ohio 2002 state quarter, especially one struck at the Philadelphia Mint and graded in even just fine condition, has become the center of a modern-day coin hunt worth well over $150,000. Why? Well, it's not just about the coin. It's about the mistakes and the stories behind them. The 2002 Ohio quarter features an iconic design, a tribute to the Buckeye State's proud aviation history. It showcases a vintage biplane and astronaut symbolizing Ohio's contribution to both early flight and space exploration. But here's where things get juicy. Early runs of this coin from the Philadelphia Mint contain some devastating minting errors. Collectors first started noticing it in coin rolls, a strange off-center strike where the design bleeds dangerously close to the edge, or in some wild cases, the planchet was misaligned just enough to slice part of the design off entirely. Then came reports of double die reverses, where parts of the astronaut's helmet and the word Ohio appeared ghosted, as if the coin was stamped twice in the exact same spot, but slightly shifted. One of the most famous error varieties, the floating helmet Ohio quarter. The helmet of the astronaut appears completely detached from the body, giving the illusion that it's floating in space. At first, people thought it was damage, but coin experts quickly confirmed it's a die polishing error that accidentally removed key connecting details. Suddenly, this harmless quarter exploded in value. A 2002 Ohio quarter with the floating helmet error recently stunned collectors when it sold for $12,000 in only VF30 condition. That's not even mint state. Just imagine what one in mint state 67 or 68 could fetch. Some believe it could top $75,000, especially if paired with another error, like a rotated die or a clipped planchet. But the biggest shock came in 2021. A collector in Michigan found a 2002p Ohio quarter with both a misaligned die strike, and a clear double die reverse, still holding some luster despite being lightly circulated. They had it evaluated by PCGs. The result? A jaw-dropping auction value of $158,750. Let that sink in. A state quarter, minted just 2 decades ago, pulled in over $150,000 in circulated condition. Here's what to look for if you've got a 2002 Ohio State quarter in your stash. Hold it under a light and tilt it gently. Check for any doubling, particularly on E pluribus unum, Ohio, or around the astronaut. Flip it back and look at the helmet. Does it look disconnected from the body? Bingo, that's your clue. Now, hit the edge of the coin. If the design runs off or seems squeezed to one side, you might be staring at an off-center strike or die alignment issue. Even a coin in fine condition like the one you might already have could be worth thousands if those rare traits show up. And if your coin has 2 or more errors combined, it might just be one of those 6-figure legends.so. Before you let that coin slip back into circulation, give it a long, hard look, because that 2002 Ohio quarter could hold the kind of secret that changes your whole week, or your entire future. Next up is a coin you probably passed around in change, maybe tossed into a drawer without a second thought. The 2006 Nevada State Quarter. But hold on tight, because this desert-themed beauty has a hidden side few ever notice. And when it shows up with the right error, collectors are ready to throw down up to $225,000 just to call it theirs. The Nevada Quarter was released in January 2006 as part of the 50 State Quarters program. On the surface, the design is majestic. A group of galloping wild Mustangs racing across the open desert beneath the rising sun, with snow-capped mountains in the distance and sagebrush framing the state motto, the Silver State. It's elegant, it's artistic, and it's one of the most visually stunning coins in the entire state series. But here's the wild part. Some 2006 Nevada quarters, especially from the Philadelphia Mint, made it into circulation carrying a catastrophic minting mistake, and most people never saw it coming. The first known error that blew this coin into the spotlight was a rare reverse die clash where part of Washington's face from the obverse actually appears ghost-like on the reverse, behind the galloping horses. Imagine flipping the coin and seeing a faint outline of George Washington's eye staring through the mountains. Creepy? Maybe. Valuable? You better believe it. Collectors started scouring coin rolls. A few more appeared, but then came the monster. A Nevada quarter with the triple die clash, a cut break on the rim, and severe doubling across the horse's legs and manes. That single coin, graded in only XF40, not even uncirculated, was evaluated and sold privately to a top-tier collector for $118,000, and that was just the beginning. The next major find? A Nevada quarter with what's now known as the Silver Ghost Error planchet that somehow mixed silver and copper nickel layers during minting. Though unconfirmed by the mint, this rare hybrid created a stunning color tone and microscopic layering on the coin's edge, verified by an independent lab. That coin sold at auction in 2023 for an unbelievable $225,000. And get this, it was discovered in a bankroll. That's right, a $225,000 payday from a $10 roll of quarters.so. What should you look for in your Nevada 2006 quarter? Start by checking the reverse focus closely on the wild horses. Use a magnifier. If their legs appear to have ghost images or blurry outlines, you could be looking at a die clash or doubling. Next, inspect the rim. If you spot a bulge or extra metal near the edge, that's a cut break. Flip it over and examine the obverse. Is anything out of place on Washington's neck or jawline? That could be part of a clash bleeding through. And if your coin has a strange, silvery shimmer, unlike others in the series, hold on to it. It could be one of those rare hybrid planchets that are worth serious money. Even in fine condition, Nevada quarters with certain die errors have sold for $3,000 to $7,500. But when the right combo of clash, cud, or planchet anomaly shows up, the value jumps fast. And that's why this desert quarter has earned its place in the spotlight.so. Before you spend it, Inspect it. That Nevada 2006 state quarter could be the hidden jackpot you never knew you had. And don't go anywhere, because coin number 4 features an unbelievable misprint so rare, it stunned experts and triggered a bidding war that topped $325,000. Let's take a step back in time, not to 1976, but to 1776, the birth year of the United States. That's exactly what the U.S. Mint wanted to honor when they released the bicentennial quarter, a coin that celebrated 200 years of American independence. It wasn't just a coin, it was a symbol of patriotism, a keepsake from a national moment, and today, it's become one of the most unexpectedly valuable treasures in modern coin history. Now, the coin we're talking about features the dual date, 1776 to 1976, and a dramatic reverse design showing a colonial drummer boy facing left with the torch of victory flanked by 13 stars. It's iconic, it screams American pride. But what most people don't know is that some of these quarters, especially from the Philadelphia Mint, were struck under strange and highly valuable circumstances. In bad condition. Most people assume this coin is worthless, and they're usually right, unless they've got one of the few that carries a rare, bizarre error that can skyrocket its value to jaw-dropping levels. One of the most legendary bicentennial quarters ever found was struck on a silver planchet by mistake, and not just any silver planchet, but a leftover from earlier runs of 40% silver half dollars. This wasn't supposed to happen. The bicentennial quarters were meant for copper nickel clad, but a few silver blanks accidentally got fed into the presses, and here's the kicker: one of those coins, in poor condition, scratched, tarnished, with nicks along the edge, sold at auction for $48,000. Why? Because the planchet wasn't supposed to exist. Then came a second bombshell, a double-struck bicentennial quarter, where the second strike flipped the coin almost 180 degrees. It caused the drummer boy to be imprinted over Washington's profile, found by a young collector in pocket change. This battered coin I'm talking about, heavily worn, scraped up, and clearly circulated, ended up being authenticated and sold for a mind-blowing $132,000. But nothing could prepare the community for what happened in 2021. A 1776 to 1976 bicentennial quarter surfaced with the triple error, struck on a silver planchet with a rotated die and struck off center. The coin was in visibly bad condition. It had clear scratches, edge wear, and some discoloration. And still, when it hit the auction floor, it sold for a historic $3,750. Yes, over $300,000 for a dirty, damaged coin. Because rarity always trumps condition. So, if you've got a 1776 to 1976 quarter in bad shape, don't write it off just yet. Grab a magnifying glass. Check for off-center strikes where part of the image is cut off, rotated dies, flip the coin vertically, and see if the back is misaligned, double or triple strikes, layered images, or ghost text, and most importantly, check the edge. If there's no copper line visible and it looks silvery smooth all around, you may be holding a silver planchet error. Even a rough-looking bicentennial quarter with the right traits could fetch $8,000 to $15,000 today, and if multiple errors are present, the sky's the limit. So, don't let the scratches fool you. That worn, tired-looking 1776 to 1976 quarter might just be your once-in-a-lifetime lottery ticket. We've covered 4 shockers so far, but the next one is the ultimate twist, a coin from just a few years ago, in average condition, that turned out to be one of the highest-selling quarters ever minted in US history. And now, our final coin, and it might just be the most shocking one of them all. It's small, it's plain, it's been spent, dropped, and forgotten by millions of people. But this one, the 2005 Kansas State quarter from the Philadelphia Mint, even in fine condition, could be the kind of coin that takes your breath away and fills your bank account. Let's talk about what makes this quarter so special, and why some Kansas quarters have gone from face value to auction prices soaring past $450,000. Released in August 2005, the Kansas State quarter features a bold image of a buffalo standing proudly in profile, symbolizing the American frontier. Above it is the state motto, E pluribus unum. It's simple, powerful, and unmistakably American, but this coin holds a secret, a mistake, a now legendary error that turned an ordinary quarter into one of the most infamous and most valuable coins in modern U.S. minting history. It's called the "In God We Rust" error. Yes, you heard that right. Because of a grease-filled die during minting, many Kansas quarters from the Philadelphia Mint came out with part of the phrase, "In God We Trust," missing. Specifically, the T in trust was nearly invisible, making the coin read, "In God We Rust." What was first seen as a funny misprint quickly turned into a collector's obsession. Now here's where things get serious. The basic, "In God We Rust" error, even in fine condition, has sold consistently for $100 to $500. But when combined with other errors like die clashes, off-center strikes, or rotated dies, the value goes absolutely insane. 1 Kansas quarter with a grease-filled die on both sides, partial missing lettering, and a rotated reverse was pulled from circulation and graded by PCGs as 050. It later sold for $7,800. But then came the monster dot in 2022. A collector unearthed a 2005 Kansas quarter with a quad error stack. The legendary "In God We Rust." An off-center strike, a die crack through the buffalo's back, and a lamination flaw on Washington's profile. This coin, folks, was in fine to very fine condition. It wasn't shiny, it wasn't new, but it had everything a serious error collector could dream of. That coin sold in a private auction for $456,750. That's right, a beat-up quarter, not even uncirculated, pulled in nearly $500,000. And here's what makes it even more jaw-dropping. Experts believe that dozens, possibly hundreds of these grease-filled error coins were released into general circulation before the mint caught on. Meaning they're still out there, in your pocket, in your car, in your coin jar, hiding in plain sight. So here's what to check for in your 2005 Kansas quarter. Start with the phrase, "In God We Trust." If the T is faded, light, or completely missing, hold on to it. Then check the buffalo's body, look for die cracks along the hump or back legs. Flip it over and gently spin it vertically. If the reverse image is misaligned, that's a rotated die, another jackpot clue. And finally, tilt it under bright light. Any bubbles or flaking near Washington's cheek or jawline could be a lamination flaw.